Is ARK Survival Evolved 2 going to release this year as planned? I am looking at a lot of signs that are saying no. In fact, 5 big ones. So I'm going to go over why I think ARK and Wildcard won't be releasing the next biggest survival game going. I would absolutely love it if it does release this year. I'm looking to get back into ARK, and the sequel seems to be more along the lines of the ARK that I know and loved. But I really do think we're not going to be seeing it until next year, and here's why. Now, we've got the reveal for ARK 2 at 2020 Game Awards in December, and since then we've not had a single peep. No concept art being shown, no extra gameplay trailers, no snippets, not even any music shown, anything to reveal anything about the game ahead of its release supposedly this year. The game's not the only thing we're not seeing much of, although we are starting to hear a little bit more murmurings. What happened to ARK the animated series? Revealed at exactly the same time, but we've not seen an actual platform even announcement, whether it's come to Netflix or Amazon Prime or anything else. In fact, we've probably had more info about the animated series than we do the sequel. I wouldn't put it past them to have delayed this until next year as well, or maybe they're going to announce it again in June. June seems to be a key month this year for a lot of announcements and I'm guessing delays. We're already approaching Q2 and we still don't have a firm release date. This is Exhibit A, why we won't see it, because the devs just aren't talking about this game yet. But does that mean that the game's not ready? There's been plenty of other games that have kind of stealth launched or maybe not had such a big run up. The most famous probably being Fallout 4. It was rumoured to be worked on, but the official reveal trailer and then the actual release of the game was about 6 months later. But that has been a one-off. In most game instances, lots of games will give you at least a year head start in terms of when it's going to release, and then as soon as we get into the year of that release, we usually get given a date. Look at Starfield most recently. We know that's coming on 11th of the 11th. And while there may be some delays, it's a firm release date. But nothing about ARK 2, which had a lot more shown off in its initial gameplay asset engine trailer. So it's an industry norm to go ahead and start giving some information about your game when it's about to release. We're already a quarter of the way through the year nearly, and we've got no extra info. So that is my evidence, Your Honour. Number 2 is the company that's making this game. Wildcard absolutely love a little bit of hype. Only the true OG ARK fans will remember that in April 2016, ARK Survival of the Fittest was announced for the PlayStation 4. This was their offshoot, their PvP full-on Battle Royale experience before Battle Royales had popped off, and they kind of ended up dumping it in the end because it just wasn't getting enough players and there wasn't enough interest as they focused more on the core game. But this was going to be the first chance that PlayStation players would potentially be able to play. A convoluted system where Sony wouldn't allow early access games meant that the only way they could get something in kind of development on there would be having a free-to-play game, and that's what Survival of the Fittest was meant to be on the PlayStation. It was supposed to come out in July 2016, but they quickly announced only a little few months after that initial reveal that it wouldn't actually be coming, as they focused on the full release for ARK on the PlayStation and obviously the 1.0 release. But this set the scene for what Wildcard were all about, creating hype and then not always delivering. A month before their supposed Survival of the Fittest was meant to launch on PlayStation, they announced this bad boy. Primal Survival. You would be able to play as a dinosaur, any of the dinosaurs in the base game, attacking other creatures, building nests and homes, and maybe even having your own young. It was pretty hype, it was pretty exciting thinking about playing this. The only way others had experienced this was the mods that were starting to spring up, and the Players the Dino mod was the most famous. Now you can actually do this. There's new commands that got added in the last 6 months that allow you to play directly as a dinosaur, and you can go and check them out. Raz has shown them off and we spoke about them a good while ago. So we've nearly got there. But the point of this was announced and then again a year and a bit later cancelled amidst a big focus on the full release of the game. 6 months later, Survival of the Fittest was officially cancelled. And it would be only 3 or 4 months after that Primal Survival was again cancelled. In all that time they didn't have any kind of any kind of release dates, any kind of reveals about either of them really. And it was pretty disappointing, as you can see from the title of my video, The ARK Rant. So that's the negative side of Wildcard and ARK maybe announcing stuff and not following through. It happens, I'm not saying it's the worst thing that can ever happen in game development, but they've done it consistently with everything else as well. Every single ARK DLC that's arrived, other than the free one, the latest one, The Lost Island, and Scorched Earth, which was stealth released, has been delayed. Sometimes by weeks, sometimes by months, but always we were given these big release dates ages and ages beforehand, and then they weren't able to deliver. And even when they started to have the release dates a little bit closer to the actual release of the games, they could still not deliver correctly. Multiple times delaying everything. So Exhibition 2, Wildcard have a huge history in delaying all their DLCs and pretty much anything they've ever done. A good few weeks ago, Wildcard kind of slipped into their patch notes for an update that the events wouldn't be happening after this year. In fact, this would be the last run officially supported. According to their blog post, we are going to be getting events like the Summer Bash, like the Winter Wonderland, and of course Fear Evolved, but that'll be it. ARK 1 will cease to get events and support like that going forward, and I'm guessing even their kind of semi-weekly events where they boost a lot of the rates. They're adding a whole bunch of the cosmetic items to the Hex store, so you can go ahead and buy what you want, and it was a bit of a strange announcement to just pop into a patch notes rather than actually talk about it. I expected this kind of announcement to happen at the end of last year, and I'm surprised it's taken a good few months to actually tell people. It's kind of expected. They've got a sequel out, they're not going to be spending loads of time and money on the first game and events. I don't expect them to, I'm not giving them any crap for it. It's exactly what should happen. But yet, another point that this is not happening this year. There's no way they're still going to be running events all throughout the winter time when their next game is out. It will stop people trying to pick up the next one. Even more evidence that obviously ARK 2 will begin properly next year. And maybe the most important, I probably could have put this as number one, Fjordur is a big tell about why we're not going to be seeing ARK 2 this year. If you're a games company, you're not releasing a brand new free map that takes a lot of time from players, that gives a lot of hype, if you're going to be doing that and then releasing the sequel to your game only a few months later. The hype that these kind of releases generate normally does last about 2 or 3 months, and Fjordur is kind of up there in terms of expectations and hype levels because of how different it is. Taking elements from Gen 2 and a whole bunch of the other previous maps, apparently having free reign to be able to teleport to different lands and having different aspects that no other DLC map has had, the free ones anyway. You're not launching free content when you're just about to go ahead and have your paid new sequel. The only example we've had of that in most recent times is something like Dying Light, where they enabled some events and gave away some cosmetic items just before Dying Light 2 came out. But this isn't the same kind of deal. Wildcard need players to migrate. They need ARK to properly die because people will kind of just stick to playing on the first game. They may not like the approach the second one takes. They may not like Vin Diesel's big bald head. It's 101 in marketing and how to sell your product. You've got to create the hype. You've then got to make sure the audience is ready for it. You can't release content upon content without some sort of little gap. And that's why I think there would be a big gap. It wouldn't be a case of this coming out in June and then the actual sequel coming out in like November or December. They're going to need more time, judging by the stuff with the events, by their history of announcing and delaying, and the fact they've just gone completely silent, not a mention, not a preview, absolutely nothing a part of any of the big game shows. This all points to ARK 2 being delayed until next year. And the fifth and final reason, Wildcard are still looking for a bunch of developers to come on board. Maybe not as many as they've looked for in the past, and this is kind of probably the usual amount that you go through. In years gone by, they've been looking for upwards of 15 developers at once. But currently, supposedly, there's only maybe 5 actual positions they're looking for, and I wouldn't say any of them are pretty key onto the game's actual release. But it still says to me that they are definitely in a position where they're needing more people to help get the game done. When you actually check out their full website, they do have more actual job listings, but this is usually just down to a case of them not updating it correctly. If it turns out they are still indeed looking for this amount of people, then even more evidence that the game isn't nowhere near close to actually completion. So there we go, it might not be news to you, the old hardened veteran of ARK. You guys are smart enough, you've been there, you know every little trick in the book that's been brought to us with hype and then delay. But there's plenty of new fans that would be expecting ARK 2 to still be dropping, and it doesn't really matter, I guess. No one's actually lost any money. I don't know if you can actually go ahead and pre-order the game anywhere. I've simply just done this video to quieten expectations down. If I'm wrong and they do end up releasing at some point this year, I will be the happiest bunny going. This isn't intended to be a negative video, it's just outlining what we know about the actual game and the history of it as well. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to trying it out. I've heard it's going to be more primitive based, that's right up my alley. I'm praying that it's going to have all the bugs and issues that we had so many problems with, particularly on console over the years, fixed, and we can just only hope that PlayStation fans won't have to wait more than maybe 6 months or a year for the actual version that they'll get after the exclusivity with PC and Xbox. The real fire test, I guess, will be this year's E3. If Wildcard don't have a release date for the game with only a few months to go, then we absolutely know it's going to be delayed till next year. So I'm fully expecting a gameplay trailer to be shown off or some actual extended footage this summer with a release date of next year. And I don't even think it will be early next year. I guess the question is, why haven't Wildcard said something about it now? If they know that maybe the pandemic affected them and maybe their ambitions got bigger, or maybe they just want to spend more time with the game, that's all good reasons enough. But they are kind of keen on giving us good news and bad news at the same time. In the past, they've previously hidden a bunch of delays with the releases of free DLC, free maps or free events. Wildcard certainly know how to make their dinosaurs take their medicine as well as their players. I actually do kind of find it a bit disrespectful when companies do this actually. It's kind of like lying to players or making them feel like they're children, that they have to be given something good to expect when they've got a bad delay or something. But I do understand the market inside of that stuff. If we get any news, I'll be there first to tell you guys about ARK 2. Any reveals, any new info, any new creatures, anything, because we're all desperate for something. Give us something, Wildcard, god damn it. But yeah, I'm not expecting anything until June. Fjordur pretty much is going to be releasing at the same time as E3. It'd be a good time to go full on ARK mental madness and release the trailer for gameplay for ARK 2 with an actual proper release date. My name's Jade, I'll see you ratbags for more in-depth analysis and news very soon. Bye bye.